everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I am your host of my signature interviews. I've been doing this since 2009, and today is a very special day because I have someone that I've been admiring, and she is definitely part of the national conversation with so much going on in the world today and locally and globally. And I want to introduce to you a fabulous woman. Her slogan when she was running for U.S. representative was Barbara Boxer gives a damn.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
would you help me welcome Senator Barbara Boxer? She was U.S. House of Representatives for 10 years. And from 1993 to 2017, she served as our U.S. Senator. Welcome, 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 Barbara Boxer.
Thanks, Jewel. I was really looking forward to this, and congratulations for all you do to really lift people up, because this is the moment that we all need to be lifted up. So thank you for that.
We are sheltered in. I'm in my office. You're in your office. How's your family doing?
Thank you. So far, so good. You know, everybody's being very careful. It's tough. My kids, like your son, they have kids, and it's hard on the kids. You know, they're like 11 and 13, and it's tough to be home, but they're doing okay. We have no complaints.
Yeah, we get a little restless, but when we think about it, we are truly, truly blessed. I bet your husband, is he still playing golf?
Yes, it's one thing that, you know, he can do very safely because he goes out with his cart. He's the only one in it. So yeah, that's good. He gets out of the house twice a week. As for me, my most exciting thing I do, beside interviews like this, is I go grocery shopping. That's the big thing in my life. And I've started cooking, you know, for years in the Senate. I didn't have time to do anything. And now I've started cooking, kind of enjoying it, you know, but it's very strange. And the worst thing of it is, as I have said, you know, these are supposed to be our golden years, and they're turning into stolen years because, you know, as you know, I've seen your grandson. I feel like I know him since the day he was born. You want to just grab those kids, and you know, and mine do come after, but they always have to isolate. Then they get tested, then they come because they don't want to give it to us. It's tough. It's tough.
It's a different world for sure. And, you know, as we look at the news, you keep saying, how much more, is there a bottom? Can it get any lower? What has happened to the moral compass? I think about not only are we fighting against this virus, but, you know, we got racial tension.
Yes.
We've got environmental issues to be concerned about, the Supreme Court choice, the upcoming election. I really want to know, what are your insights? Especially when I think about the passing this year of so many icons.
Yes.
And you had a chance to work shoulder to shoulder with John Lewis. What are your memories of him?
Oh, thank you for asking. I just, before I tell you my great John Lewis story that I treasure, you know, you listed everything that's facing people. But the one thing you didn't mention is, it's very obvious, half of our people are feeling economically insecure. They're scared. They're not ready for this. You know, most people live paycheck to paycheck. And if they have a $400 or $500 extra bill, it's tough. Now they're in a precarious situation. So when you combine everything you said with this economic insecurity and this fear, it's a very, 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 very rough time. But to turn it to a better subject, which is John Lewis, who, to me, I get the chills when I think of John, because as great as John was, and everyone agrees, there is no disagreement. This is what's fascinating. Everyone knows he was great. He was courageous. He put his life on the line for justice and fairness and equality. He was the most humble person you ever wanted to meet. When I served with him, and I'll tell you the quick story I wanted to share with you and your listeners. A long time ago, when I was in the House, it was in the 80s, nearing about 1990, there was a trouble, was really breaking out in the Middle East between the Palestinians and Israel. And so we took a trip, about, I'd say there were at least 12 members of Congress, and we wanted to go to the region and see if there was something we could do to help calm down the tensions. And it was a multiracial group. It was but I think I was the only woman, and I think I was the only Jewish person on the trip. And so here's what happened. So we go, and the king of Morocco, who was known as a friend of the Jewish people, we thought he'd be perfect as a mediator between the sides. So we go to the palace. That's a whole other story. It was unbelievable. It's kind of good to be king, you know. You never saw anything like this, Julie, in your entire life. But we go in the meeting. They looked at me like I was crazy, because in that culture, women really aren't equal to men. But I marched in there. And after about 10 minutes of chatting, and our leader, Tony Coelho, opened it up and he said, "We're here in good faith. We want to urge you, please, to help us resolve this so we don't have a war break out." And he started off with a slur against Jewish people. And it was a pretty bad slur. It was something to the effect of, well, you know, the Jewish mind thinks differently. It was, and of course, I near fainted. I thought, well, I'm getting up and leaving. So I stood up. And when I stood up, the leader of our delegation, Tony, who I loved, he stood up. And we all walked out. We go to the bus. And John was on this trip. So we're in the bus. And after about 10 minutes, one of my colleagues says to me, "You know, Barbara, you ruined this whole thing. How could you do that? You're overly sensitive." And the others started to pile on. They said, "Yeah, we could have been at the palace, and he was giving us chocolates and all this kind of." And I said, "Listen, guys, you have to stand up when you see this." And with that, a voice came, and I kid you not, from the back of the bus, which has its own ramifications. And of course, it's John, because his voice was unmistakable. And he says, "Barbara's right. I know bigotry when I see it." And with that, the whole group said, okay. Now,
a voice of a leader.
I have to tell you, yes. But I'll tell you why it was so touching and moving. It really, John, he could have chosen just to join the group and, you know, just not say anything. And so I have adored that man ever since then. And of course, before then. And when I wrote my memoir, it's called The Art of Tough, I called John because I wanted to tell the story. And I said, "John, this is how I remember it." And he said, "Exactly. Go ahead, print it."
Go ahead.
What a precious man. And so we lost John, and therefore we have to vote, because John put his life on the line for voting. And we also lost this person, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, my doll that I keep in my house to remind me of our freedoms. So we lost these two icons for justice. And it's a very tough year. And not to mention the 200 and what are we up to, 10,000 or more fellow souls here in America from COVID. It's a very tough year.
Yeah. And then I think about those that were killed. They cannot vote, the injustices that have not been remedied. You know, you think about all the losses on so many levels. And I just knew that if I talked to you today, you would help to encourage our listeners that are on the fence, the importance of voting.
Yeah.
Let's not be passive.
No.
Let's not talk about the lesser of two evils. Our freedom, our rights, our peace, our economy is on the line.
Well, there's a couple of things I think I want to say about that. Number one, I want to start off and acknowledge that no candidate is perfect. Trust me.
Exactly.
And I mean, I wasn't perfect. My husband was mad at me on occasion. He said, "Why didn't you do this or that or the other?" And my kids called up, "Mom, you're not liberal enough." So nobody's perfect except yourself. So if each of your listeners runs for president, they'd be very happy with themselves. But you cannot expect that a candidate's going to represent you 100% of the time, because it's not, this is an indirect democracy. It's called a representative democracy. So we elect people that are closest to our views, not exactly with us on every occasion. It's just, it's imperfect. But no one can say there's no difference here. No one can say, there's no choice here. We are in a circumstance, let's put it this way. For 4 years, we've been living in Donald Trump's America. That's just a fact, one way or the other. And if you like what's happening, then you'll probably vote for him. But if you don't, you need a vote for change, and don't throw away that vote. You know, you have a choice. You have to go, I think, for Joe and Kamala. And of course, those two will make history. She is pretty fabulous. I mean, she's really adding much to the ticket, a woman of color. That's historic in and of itself. But I think the ticket of a white man and a woman of color, it's a healing ticket. It heals me when I look at it. Because the division, Trump's America is divided, and he plays off those divisions. Last point I make to you, Jules, I've served with 5 presidents. I'm a proud Democrat. I served with 5 presidents, starting with Ronald Reagan. So there were 3 Republicans and 2 Democrats. And I've never seen a president like this. This is not a president who wants to broaden his base, who wants to reach out to us, who has empathy. Every president I've served with, you know, I may not have agreed with him on a whole host of things, but this one is the first one that doesn't want to broaden his base. And he's also the first one that's thrown away science. And we need to know, if we're understanding the climate and what's facing us and COVID, you know, when you get sick, you don't call the president or a senator, you call your doctor.
Scientists, yeah.
And look what he's called Fauci, an idiot. You know, I put out a tweet, you'll laugh hard, I think. I said, because he called Fauci an idiot, and his idiot, all the idiots that are saying, be careful of COVID and you know, wear a mask and socially distance, et cetera, they're idiots. So I put out a tweet that said, only an idiot would call Fauci an idiot. And it's gotten a lot of likes because it's crazy. You know?
It's so true. I mean, I went to my doctor yesterday. I have a female doctor, and I was asking her, I said, you know, what is your insight? What is your prediction? How long do you think we're going to be in this? She said, first of all, it is too soon to send our children back to school. No, we should not be sending them back to school. She said, this virus is dangerous. And she said, it morphs. And I thought, you know, I used to hear it just worry about the vulnerability of elders or those who had underlying conditions. But she said, no, anybody.
It's a crapshoot. You don't know how you are going to respond. And that's what's so difficult, right? So, you know, you see young people who die from it. You know, when I say young, in their 30s or something. This is
Have
crazy.
you known anyone in your circle of family and friends? Have you known anyone that's been affected by COVID? I do.
I have 2 really good friends that had it. One had a terrible case, actually 3. One had a terrible case, was on a ventilator. We thought we were going to lose him. It's a miracle that he pulled through. Really, it is, because he's over 70. He pulled through. Another one, he and his wife got it. He had an easier case than she had, which is usually the man does worse. So it's unpredictable. And you see these. Then I read another article, Jewel. I don't know if it's true, but I read it that some young man who was perfectly healthy got COVID, didn't have a bad time, was in his late 20s, I think, and then got it again and is having a terrible time. So we don't know anything about it. And I have to tell you, Jewel, from what I can see, just listening to Trump and listening to the people he listens to, they just want to let it rip, let it go, and whoever dies, dies. That's like the killing fields, you know?
It is.
Sorry.
I know. I can hear you're getting a she shed built.
Yeah, I'm so sorry about that, but we'll go through it.
It's okay.
What's happening is you can see everybody. I'm in my living room, which is a nice, beautiful space, but I'm messing it up. So I have this little space, 13 by 14. They're building me a little office. It's about time.
Okay.
I don't love sitting at a desk, but this isn't working out. I see you. I'm jealous. You're in a beautiful office, and I'm sitting in my living room and my dining room there. It's not the best thing. So that's what's going on. Forgive me back there, but
no, it's okay. I just heard the hammering.
Yeah. They're
but I'm so glad that you were able to schedule this time with me, because I wanted to have everyone hear your voice and your insight. This is such a critical time. And are you impressed and inspired to see how many people are coming out to vote?
Jewel, I am moved to tears. Yeah. And, you know, I was on MSNBC the other night and I was saying, but I feel 2 ways about it. One
Okay.
is, this is miraculous. This is fantastic. This is gorgeous. This is democracy. This is resilient people. On the other hand, why is it so hard that people have to wait for hours and hours and hours? The answer is obvious. In some of these states, there's voter suppression.
Mm-hmm.
It's against people of color. It's against young people, mostly. And in general, it's happening in the southern states. And the fact that people are saying, you know, I'm going to do what I have to do. And they don't want to wait until the last minute. They're fearful, I'm sure, of COVID and standing, you know, the more the weather turns cold, they say, the easier it is to catch it. So I think they're trying to get this vote, you know, banked. So on the one hand, it is miraculously wonderful and glorious. On the other hand, it's because these states are not doing the right thing. And with that, I will tell you this: some of your audience may not know this, but in several years ago, the Supreme Court made a terrible decision, and they destroyed the Voting Rights Act. They took out one section of the Voting Rights Act, and that section said, and it was passed many years ago during the Civil Rights Movement, the section they deleted said, in all counties in the country where there's been discrimination and there's been suppression, if you are changing the way you vote, the Justice Department Civil Rights Division has to look at what you're doing. So for example, if they hadn't done this, the Supreme Court, and thrown out that section, we have a situation in Texas where they've put in one drop-off box per county. And we have counties there that have millions of people, and it's miles and miles to drive, right? To drop off the ballot for people who don't want to put it in the mail because they're scared. They want to get it in the ballot box. So if they hadn't struck down this law, there would have been a lawsuit, and the Justice Department would have looked at this and said, wait a minute, you're going from 400 ballot boxes to one per county. No, you can't do it. So that was thrown out. And that's why the Supreme Court seat is so critical. If, you know, there was a decision that just came down where Roberts joined with the Democrats on the court and said that Pennsylvania's change is good. They made a good change. They said, as long as your vote is postmarked by election day, it can count. The Republicans sued and said, we don't want to count them if they arrive after election day. There was a lawsuit filed, and Justice Roberts went with the liberals on the bench. So if Amy Coney Barrett was there, probably she'd vote the other way. This is why this election is so critical. Who do you want picking your Supreme Court? We can't get caught up in small issues. These are huge issues, Jewel.
There's so much you have to be aware of, so much legality. Yeah. And I know your background was a stockbroker. Yeah. And to go from being, you know, Wall Street to deal with all these legal ramifications and fine print. And this is where many of us are lost because we're not aware of all these legality, these traps and the fine print. And I'm so glad that you're bringing this to the forefront. We've got to have more critical discussions like this. We've got to hear more people speaking the truth, as you are saying, calling it out. It is voter suppression. It is racism. Yeah. It is so unfair and so un-American. And I thank you for your service that continues. I thank you for all the time you put in to read, to study, to be interviewed, to stay active and proactive. And I can't wait for this pandemic to be over so that we can
see each other. We don't live that far away from each other. I want to leave your audience with one thing. This is going to sound crazy and they're going to say, nah, but I'm going to put it out there. I recommend everybody buy a pocket constitution. It's this teeny little pamphlet. The Constitution is like 55 pages in little pages. And it's interesting because when you say, you know, that I've kept up and so on, I'm not a lawyer, but I am married to one, and my father was one and my son is one, but I never was. I was a stockbroker, then I left because I wanted to go in politics and make life better for people. So when I started my journey, I looked at the Constitution. It's the easiest thing to understand in the world. And I
Wow.
think if you just look at it, and I will say this, Barack Obama always says, the preamble to the Constitution is all you need to read to understand what our government's supposed to be. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union,
Yes.
establish justice. That's the first goal. So I recommend everybody do that. It probably costs $5. I don't know what it costs, but I would get a Constitution, a little pocket one, and read it. And you'll feel good because you'll know everything I said is derived from that document. And the founders were imperfect. They were terrible. They had slaves. It was awful, but they knew they were imperfect because they didn't say, we the people have a perfect union. They said in order to form a more perfect union.
Okay, I
They
like
knew they messed it up. And it's up to us to straighten it out. And I think if we vote, we'll straighten it out. We'll get a change. And the change will be good. And will it be perfect? Of course it won't be perfect.
No.
The change will be good. Because the main thing is that we come together. If we come together, nothing can stop us. But if we're divided, sitting around with our own friends and we don't talk, it's a dangerous circumstance. So thank you for this opportunity so much.
Thank you so much, Senator Barbara Boxer, who gives a damn. Thank you so
I
much.
do. Thank you. Bye,
God bless you
Jill.
and your family.
God bless you too.